Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
Hi, friends. I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell.
And we're the hosts of the Spark File Creativity Podcast.
We are excited to report that we're accepting applications for the Spark File Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, a guided 6-month creative adventure.
This program is like a live, interactive episode of the Spark File Podcast, facilitated by the two of us and, of course, the occasional inspiring expert or guest maker. We'll investigate topics that directly impact your creativity and productivity. A select group of participants will design and navigate their own creative roadmaps and support each other to get the work done. Now, you might have a specific project you want to tackle, or you might just want a healthy, productive group to engage with in a regular creative practice.
At each week's virtual meetup, through activities, accountability, and interaction with a community of peers, we'll lay the groundwork for your creativity to thrive. Show up and do the work, and in 6 months' time, your creative practice will be on point and your creative project will be well on its way.
As you know, we believe every single person is innately creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. If you want to be surrounded by a group of like-minded creatives who are invested in your success, the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program might be just right for you.
If this creative mixtape sounds appealing to you, go to thesparkfile.com, click on coaching, and apply. But do it soon because spots are limited.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your public drinking fountain for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. But you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are good questions, and we have got answers.
A Spark File is the place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We're here to refill it.
We're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or an Emmy Award winning, hilarious, and heartwarming character that helps us all examine our humanity.
Or a signature Auguste clown defined by mismatched plaids with a trademark bold splash of pink and a blue lip.
Or the voice of a beloved pup who gives us a glimpse into the mischievous secret adventures of our pets.
Or a legacy of giving back to a community you hold dear through comedy, through philanthropy, and through a royal sports team fandom. What?
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk with a dear friend who truly sparks us.
And that someone is Eric Stonestreet. Eric, welcome to The Spark
File. Eric.
Hello.
We're so happy to
Hi.
have you here. You came in
Thank
from
you.
fishing to do this podcast. That is what I call a commitment to friendship.
Yes.
Thank you.
Laura calls, I answer.
We're so excited that you're here. So we'll just start by asking, where are you right now? How are you right now? And what are you wearing?
I'm in Kansas City, my hometown. I decided to venture back here and leave Los Angeles because it didn't seem like there was much going on there. So I'm back here, and I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Very fortunate to have a nice place to be and not be too stressed out about anything, and just think about all the people that are stressed out about stuff. It worries me. And then I'm wearing a t-shirt and my pants and my socks and my shoes.
Please say hip waders. Please say hip waders. Please,
No.
Damn it.
My pants are tucked in my socks because it's tick season in Kansas City, so I have to protect against getting ticks.
Eric, you started your quarantine in Los Angeles, and now you're in Kansas. I started my quarantine in New York City, and now I'm in Florida. I'm curious about just what's that experience for you? Do you feel like there's a great difference in perspective in those two locations, or about the same?
Wearing a mask in Kansas City, I got to tell you, is great. I love it. Nobody knows. I'm not having any conversations with anybody. I'm just going in and just getting my stuff and walking out, and it's great.
The 6 feet apart thing has to help that too. Like everyone's,
and in Kansas City, I'm very fortunate to have people, like me and want to celebrate me, and I do a lot of hugging and a lot of handshaking, and none of that's happening right now. So it feels
that mask really comes in handy.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels like I'm just my old Eric.
That's so interesting. That reminds me when friends, movie stars and TV stars, go to Comic-Con in full cosplay so that they can move through. They could just walk. There's Spider-Man just walking through there, and they get to have just a little difference from their normal life, which I think is great.
One of the things I love about Halloween is it allows me to. I've always loved Halloween. I've always loved putting on a very realistic, scary, some kind of old person mask and, scaring people. And Halloween, allows me in Los Angeles to go amongst people and
that's right.
Do what I love to do.
Scare the shit out of them.
Yeah, just creep people out.
Your real joy in life is scaring the shit out of people.
That tells me so much about you.
But not in a boo sort of like way, in a very methodical, just staring, creepy from a distance kind of way. I'm not like a startle
the
you
best
type
kind of way.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I want to stand on a street corner and stare at someone until they see that I'm staring at them, and then when they walk away, follow them for a quarter of a mile. Like that's
You're sort of a menacing,
Eric.
like a menacing threat. Yeah.
Eric, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
That would be scary as fuck. That is fucked.
Yeah. It's very effective.
I love it.
Before we get too far down the lane, the SparkFile price of admission, real quick, Eric, can you tell us a creative risk that you have taken recently?
Well, nothing really much in my career in the last few months, because Modern Family ended in February, and then things kind of slowed down. My creativity, I guess you would say. I mean, if the truth is what my mind is creatively and actively thinking about is building a fun retreat for myself, someplace to go and hang out.
Yes.
So
this is it. This is great.
I've been thinking about outdoor bathrooms is literally what I was thinking about on my way home from fishing to be with
From
you.
fishing.
When you say outdoor bathrooms, do you mean like an outdoor shower or like an outdoor toilet, which would be innovative to say the least?
Well, just like a really great place for friends, family to be able to use the bathroom in the middle of nowhere, but feel as though they're in the Parker Meridian in New York City or wherever. I want them to feel as though they're in the opulence of a bathroom in a great New York City hotel, but literally in the middle of the woods of Kansas. So that's what I've been thinking about recently, because I mean, I can't imagine that your listeners are like, this is what I tune in for. But
I don't know. I have the biggest smile on my face right
know,
now.
me too.
I'm like, this is some good creativity.
Yeah, well, because there are lateral lines and a septic tank already on this piece of property. So I have to take what's already there and that exists and turn it into what my design is. So that's been filling my brain
I love that.
with a lot.
That was the most unexpected, I'd have to say. And I could never have predicted that. But it is exactly the example we're talking about. Like suddenly you're like, I'm a bathroom designer, an outdoor bathroom designer. And because I have a vision
but working with a
why not?
pre-existing septic system and doing some creative problem solving.
I am so sorry. You can hang up on me now if you'd like.
Oh, hell no.
So it's a little bit more than that. And it's like, I want to build, I want to kind of build my own like campground. I just want to build my own place where I can go and be in. So there's more than just a bathroom. There's a place to have a fireplace.
But a bathroom,
so that's what.
Listen, though, if it was just like a fucking freestanding Parker Meridian bathroom in the middle of the woods, that would be baller.
I see a partnership. I think they're going to want to brand that.
This is one of the most exciting prices of admission we've ever heard on this podcast.
I love it so much. You officially are admitted into the Spark File.
Yeah. The good news is, one or both of you, for sure, Laura, will definitely at some point probably use that bathroom.
Yes.
Cam, I was hoping
shit in that toilet. Yes.
There will be a full circle moment.
Oh my God.
What you're describing immediately when you start talking about it, Eric, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, I've made up a whole story around this little price of admission you've shared, but it sounds like you have procured a beautiful piece of land and you're figuring out how to create this retreat for you and the people that you love. And it sounds like it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. When Modern Family was, in its 7th or 8th season, and I, realized that, well, this isn't going to last forever, and I don't know how long I, want to be in the business. I was never sort of thinking that I would always be an actor. I started thinking about, what I would do afterwards, and started looking at properties in California, and then I started looking at properties near where Laura and I went to college in Manhattan in the Flint Hills, which is so beautiful. And then when Lindsay and I started dating, then it kind of, we've been together almost 4 years now, it kind of changed the perspective of like where it would make sense to have a little retreat. And I thought, well, why bring a third location into the equation and why not find a place that's somewhat close to where I grew up, where my parents are, where her parents are, and she is. And
that sounds beautiful.
It makes perfect sense. And you just mentioned something that I wanted to fill our listeners in just a little bit of backstory. Eric and I go way back to the good old days of Kansas State University.
Go Wildcats. Yes.
The Wildcats. And I just talked about K-State a few episodes ago, Eric, which was really fun to dedicate an episode to that. But a question for you. Even though now, like most people probably recognize you from the role of Cameron Tucker on Modern Family, but I've always known you as an incredibly creative person. Like, yes, you're an actor and you play the drums and you're fluent in clowning and improv and stand-up comedy, but you are also a cook, a really creative gift giver. Your home design is incredible. It's really eclectic and Susan, you'd love it because all It's beautiful, but everything has stories and significance as you move through the house. You're great at pranks. Your Instagram is full of like funny videos.
You're
torturing
terrifying
people,
on Halloween.
and torturing Lindsay, which is like a special kind of comedy, which is really amazing. But all of this is to say that like creativity seems to just run through your veins. So my question for you is this: when did you become conscious of your own creativity? Was there something in your upbringing that cultivated it within you, or is it something that's just always been?
Yeah, I think we all are on some sort of quest to figure out like when someone knew we were maybe a little different or something. And I've always asked my parents, like, when did you first think like I was funny, and not just like because I'm your son funny, but when you thought like, oh, Eric has a different perspective and an outlook on life. And a couple things I know for a fact. Like, I've heard my parents each tell me that my grandma Louise, who made all Fizbo costumes when I was a kid, she would always tell them that one of the reasons at a young age that I was able, and she was so excited to have me down there other than seeing me, was because she could put me, if she was baking or if she was doing something, she could put me on the front porch, a screened in porch, with a box of blocks, and she never heard a peep out of me for hours. So that's always intrigued me, that I was able to entertain myself at a really, really young age without needing a ton of stimulation. Now, that might be a product of when I was a young kid, but and then the other thing is I really have these distinct memories of going, because one of the things I loved to do with my grandma and grandpa and mom and dad was to go to the mall. I loved going to Montgomery Ward's. And I never wanted to look at toys. I always wanted to look at tools. And I would just go through the catalog of Montgomery Ward's and Sears and just look at screwdrivers and saws and hammers. Obsessed with tools. And so when we would go to the mall and I would go in, my grandpa would just let me look at all the tools on the wall, and I just imagined, oh yeah, owning all those tools. But more than that, I remember once we would leave the Montgomery Wards and go into the mall, I didn't want to go into any other stores. And I have specific memories of sitting on the bench outside, when you could leave a kid sit on the bench outside of these stores. And I would have full-on conversations with adults. Like, I have those memories of complete strangers, me sitting on a bench waiting for my grandma or my grandpa or my mom or my dad to come out of whatever store they were in that I wasn't interested in, and having conversations with adults. And my dad is the same way, as far as like, my dad's never met a stranger, and he would always say that as a kid about me as a kid, is Eric, never met a stranger. So, and then just like so many other people that find their way into the world that found our way into, I would get on my report card every year that Eric is a very nice young man, but he needs to understand that there's a time and a place for everything. And
that's your first rein it in advice.
Yeah.
So glad you didn't.
That he's distracting. I mean, and I'm still that same person. I mean, Lindsay has 2 8-year-old boys, and the other night I found myself, basically being the third 8-year-old at the table. And Lindsay's like looking at me like, are you serious right now? I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am doing the exact same thing they are.
Whoops.
So my sort of like active and creative brain, I would say, started that way. And then Laura, you hit on it. I mean, I wanted to be a clown like at an oddly young age. Like, I was putting on clown makeup and wigs and clown suits when I was 8 years old. And I don't mean for Halloween. I mean dressing up in makeup and learning from a shrine clown how to put on clown makeup, and identifying when I went to the circus that's what I wanted to do.
Were you able to articulate then or now, like, what was it that really spoke to you about being a clown?
Well, I mean, I think when you go to the Ringling Brothers Circus, I'm certainly not gonna, be on the trapeze. I never saw myself flying through the air, getting shot out of a cannon. I didn't have that gene in me, but I just had the gene of being in the center ring with the spotlight on me, getting the pie in my face. And it's an episode, the first episode of Modern Family that Fizbo's, introduced. It's the line of "I knew I wanted to be a clown" from the moment I found out clowns were just people with makeup. That is an absolute direct quote from my life. I told them that I told my mom the moment I figured out that, wait, so those people just have fake noses and fake hair and makeup, and anyone can do that. I was done. I mean, that's all I wanted to do, and just making people laugh.
Do you know why, Eric? Like, what specifically was it about it that you were so compelled?
Well, I just told Lindsay the other night, I don't know what the obsession is with me looking. I love looking at clown pictures. I love looking at videos of clowns.
I love that.
I always have. I've always loved little statues and little clown things. And so, I mean, I guess a psychologist would tell me there's something about hiding behind there, or the mask, and not wanting, I loved Kiss was obviously my favorite band when I was a kid, because here they come with makeup on, and the mystique of not knowing what they look like. But the smell of makeup, the smell of the adhesive of putting on my nose, it's all just so.
There's something about it that is so magnetic to you.
Yeah. And then again, you get into that Halloween. I was in 4-H when I was a kid, and
Me too.
Clowning was a project that
all of us were in 4-H.
Oh, cool.
That is
all 4-Hers.
Yeah. Yep.
And
awesome.
So
but
clowning.
You did clowning in 4-H?
They created a clowning project because of I wanted to be a clown. So they would get people to come in and teach us how to do makeup and all that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
Cams, I don't think I ever told you this, and Eric, I know I've never told you this. There was an ad in the paper when I was little, a local department store. Don't ask me why, but a local department store was offering clowning classes, and my mom must have been like, "You like things like this? Maybe you'd be interested." And there was a number for you to call, and I called it and called it and called it on our rotary phone, and it just rang and rang and rang. And finally, somebody finally picked up the phone, and I registered myself for clown classes. And Eric, I fucking feel you. Like the makeup, I was obsessed with the creating my clown persona and my clown costume, and getting my mom to help me. She helped me sort of fashion something from a thrift store, and I was sort of like, sort of an Auguste clown, but like a fancy lady. It's hard. It's hard to explain, but I feel you. I fucking feel you, and I don't know why I feel like you had an entrepreneurial spirit with your clowning, even as a young person, that you kind of were putting yourself out there and even making a business of it as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have that kind of confidence, but that I feel you. I feel you.
I had business cards when I was 11. I still have some of my
Shut
Fizbo the
for
clown.
Fizbo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
I still have some of the cards left over.
Frameable. That's amazing.
Eric, will you jog my memory on something? So I remember, after we left college and I went to New York, when I started working for Blue Man, which is, honestly, they don't use the word clown, but they're a bunch of clowns. And
so pretentious they don't use the word clown. That's exactly what they are clowns.
I mean, they're clowns.
They're clowning.
They're
Don't
clowning.
they internally though? Like when they talk about it internally?
No.
Really?
Yeah, for real.
Wow.
But Wes, like when I joke with Wes about his autobiography, we've named it A Man Among Clowns. So that'll be his story when it comes time to write it. But so he knows he's a clown. But what I loved, like from the start, I started with Blue Man before anyone knew what the heck it was. And Eric, I can remember telling you about it. I remember when you saw it and you were like, this is the most amazing thing. And you were such a champion of it, which made me feel really proud when the rest of the world was like, that sounds weird. You were like in full support, which was,
God. Yeah, loved it because it's clowning.
yeah, it's
What
clowning.
am I jogging your memory on though?
Oh yeah, I haven't gotten to the question. So around that time though, did you either apply to Ringling Brothers School, or were you making a decision of whether or not to go there? There was something that you came very close to continuing your studies as a clown, right?
Yeah, so I can't remember how many years you left K-State before I did, if it's 1 or 2, but
I think one, yeah.
Okay, so I applied for Ringling Brothers twice, and once when I was in college, and both times when I was in college, and then so you would have been there in college for one of the times I applied, and the first year, it's a running acceptance. It was a running acceptance. So if they liked you, they'd put you on a wall, and then they'd keep you on the wall until somebody came along that they thought was better. So I wasn't hearing anything. And I had one more year of school to go. So finally, I had to call Clown College and say, like, hey, what's going on? And there's like, you're still up on the wall. We don't know yet. And Clown College back then, you would get an envelope with your acceptance letter full of confetti, and that's how you would be told that
Of course you would.
In. And then, so I got told over the phone because it came down to the wire so much that I wasn't accepted. So then I reapplied the next year and didn't get as far in the process. And that's where I hung it up. But I flew to Chicago twice to audition, flew to Chicago once to audition, and then drove to Kansas City the second year to audition.
Man, I would love to talk about your, like you said, with Modern Family. Once, you were developing that character, you brought so much of your own personal history to it. And I was always amazed when you would tell me those stories of just talking to the writers and like how Fizbo found his way into that storyline is incredible.
Well, it was sort of one of the things that, when I was going through the audition process for Modern Family, you can't like walk into the room and be like, also, you guys, if you hire me, I used to raise pigs. I was in 4-H. I was in a show, I played football. I was a clown. I played the drums. I'm not a bad singer. I can do this. So you can't like rattle off all the things that from your life that they might be able to mine. So, I knew if I got the job that they were going to get, a good actor and someone funny, but I also knew that they were going to get a lot more information from me. So it was just a matter of time. I mean, when they first became aware of Fizbo, we actually shot a bunch of interviews for the pilot that, just made no reason to have him in there, but they exist somewhere of Cam saying he's a clown in the pilot. And then I just brought in an article that was written about me when I was in the 5th grade and my desire to clown and join the circus and all this other stuff. And I brought that in to 2 of our writers, Brad and Paul, and they were like, awesome. And then few weeks later, there was an episode called Fizbo.
When you think of yourself, Eric, do you think because you are a person who you've had wild success as an interpretive artist, but you have the soul and the spirit of a creative artist and an entrepreneur, frankly, I just wonder, when you think about yourself, do you think about yourself as an interpretive artist because you've been so successful as an interpretive artist, or do you just think of yourself as a creative person? How does it feel on the inside?
That's the first time I've ever been asked that question. That's good. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about with why I like clowns and why I like wearing a mask in Kansas City, because, my life leading up to getting and being fortunate enough to get a crazy successful a job on a crazy successful show was being an open and upward and outward looking person, right?
Mm.
I didn't
I
go
love
to
that.
I didn't go to acting school. You know, I went to Kansas State where we learned how to act and we did plays.
What was your major?
Sociology.
Oh, Cams, what was your major?
Speech, communication, and theater.
I assumed you both were just like BFA acting majors.
No, I was a sociology major. I only did a play. Well, we'll go down a long path there, but I only did a play because I basically was depressed because my high school girlfriend broke up with me, and my best friend Paul, who's still my best friend Paul, dared me to audition for a play, and I said I would if he would. So we both went up to the theater department.
Get it,
and
Paul? Yes.
We auditioned for plays, and he got cast in Hamlet with Laura, and I got cast in a play called Prelude to a Kiss.
And then we did All My Sons together.
Which, by the way, yesterday in Kansas City, there's a moving company called All My Sons. And I saw that and I thought of you yesterday. In that
portentous.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like I derailed you. I'm sorry. I feel like I derailed
okay.
you. So you were saying about the way you think about yourself as a forward, upward thinking, looking person.
Yeah. You know, my experience and my acting training, if you will, mostly is watching and looking and being a participant, you know, in life, and like being able to be a weird starer without anyone really noticing I'm a weird starer. but once you become recognizable, or the famous word or whatever, then you're just the guy on Modern Family who won't stop staring at me. So I found that my former self kind of went away a little bit as far as just feeling confident and comfortable to be out in public and just really being outward and upward and looking out and not looking as though I'm Jean-Claude Van Damme doing high kicks in the middle of a hotel room. You know, like I'm not looking for more attention, but if you do that, you're kind of run the risk of looking like you're wanting to be noticed or something. But that's what my life, you know, was before. So I consider myself sort of an interpretive performer. But what you said before that, which was entrepreneur, and my dad owning his own business and being a retailer and all that, I always looked at show business as a business. And I remember very early on really having a firm grasp on that aspect of the vocation, and knowing that the show is the given portion of that. The business is the thing that most people kind of neglect and don't think about that much. And I just sort of always thought, well, I have comedic chops, I have talent, I think I'm pretty good based on, you know, looking at other people in my classes and knowing how long they've been doing things, always self-evaluating myself. And, you know, people say don't compare yourself to others, but there is a proper time to compare yourself to others. It doesn't mean that you have to compare yourself to others and then not do something, but you do need to look in the mirror, and sometimes other people, you know, are helpful in helping you look in the mirror. But I always thought like that was a given. The given, well, we'll just take it from an acting perspective. The given circumstance of the situation is that I thought I was talented and funny. And the thing that I needed to work on and focus on more was the business end of show business. So I really, you know, learned it, like agents, managers, casting directors, studied books, studied everything I could to learn all the business side of making it, because I thought I got the chops to do it.
It feels like, and I don't mean to assess you incorrectly, but it feels like you've had this wild success as an interpretive artist, and running straight through the center of you is a pure creative originator, is what it feels like.
Laura?
I was going to say, Eric, if you don't say yes to that, I'll chime in and say, I think that is true. And well before the great success of Modern Family. I have just known that to be true of you, and it is, like you said, this upward facing, but I also attribute it to this curiosity that you have about life, and just like your dad.
Can I jump on that for a second?
Sure.
I'm stuck back on this kid sitting on the bench at the mall who's engaging with passersby. And I just wonder, first of all, I love the image of that. And I also wonder if you can work your mind back, Eric. Do you remember being like, I can engage people, like I have a superpower? Did you experience it like that? Or were you just like, I'm good talking to adults? Do you remember how it felt when you were actually that kid on the bench?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a memory of something around that. Here's something about that I just talked about with my aunts the other day. One of my aunts owned a restaurant called the Taco Kid, and she was just telling Lindsay about how my grandma made me a smock, the same look of all the people that worked at Taco Kid. It was a red zip-up smock with little pockets. And so she made one for me, and I would come in and clean tables at 6, 7 years old.
You were the Taco Kid.
I was the Taco Kid.
Yeah.
So, I guess there are definite hints when you see pictures of what I would be doing, baking with my grandma at 7, and being not just there, but actively participating and wanting to learn. I mean, the first thing I ever cooked for my grandma and aunt spending the night in there was, my world famous nachos in the toaster oven. And we're talking a very, very young age of me having a desire to make food. My mom has a very distinct memory of me being home from school sick at 10, 11 years old, and calling her when she called to check on me, me saying I had been watching The Galloping Gourmet and he made a steak sandwich, and I wanted her to stop and get all the stuff so I could make the steak sandwich for everybody.
Yes.
So, it's all kind of there as a curiosity and just like kind of wanting to learn. But the problem is, and the thing that I really hit a roadblock is that didn't cross over into education. I never had the curiosity when it was like, sit down and learn this algebra problem or sit down and learn this science problem. I never clicked into being good in school and being a disciplined studier. I was the kid that just did enough to get C's and D's versus the overachiever and really hard worker to get B's.
But here's what I want to say, like that may have been challenging and problematic then, but I feel like and this goes to being, I think, an originator and a creator and an entrepreneur. You created your own path. And just because you couldn't measure up to a grading scale or a learning system that worked for other young people, I feel like you were always learning, whether you were on that bench at the mall, whether you were looking at the tools at Montgomery Ward, whether you were watching The Galloping Gourmet or sitting with those blocks. It just seemed like that curiosity was where your education was happening. And then later that observation of the world so that you could do something with it and make something with it.
Well, 100%.
I think that's just as valid.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And then, having parents that never squelched that, and never thought
that's
it was
key.
Weird.
That's so critical. Yeah.
My least favorite word, you ask people their least favorite words in the world, and girls will always say moist or something like that. My least favorite word in the world is weird. I do not like the word weird. I think it's a lazy word. I think people use it so easily in life, and they just, when they see something different, they just pop weird on it, and it drives me crazy. And I think it's probably because kids called me weird because in 6th grade I wanted to put on clown makeup and I wanted to do this and I wanted to play football. But I hate that word. But my point is my parents never thought I was weird. And look, I grew up in Kansas. I wanted to play football. I baled hay. I raised pigs. My dad's this meat and potatoes guy. So you can't tell me at some point he didn't have a conflicting feeling in his mind when his son wanted to play football and put on wigs and his wife's makeup. So he had
It's
to have
remarkable.
been thinking, what's going on? But that didn't stop him from encouraging me to do whatever I wanted, So I'm super thankful that happened.
The
I love that.
concept of not being weird is such a strong force in the Midwest. Like we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I remember growing up having like the fear of like, oh God, what if I'm weird? People will think I'm weird. And I'm like, where did that come from? But it was like the only sort of behavioral controlling device, that people had of like, my God, you don't want to be weird. So like try to fit in and be normal.
Here's my thing with it. If somebody's listening and they enjoy thinking of themselves as weird, I have no problem with that. But I don't like it when it's used as a pejorative, because it just means the person using it isn't creative enough to think of something else other than the word weird to label someone as. That's the same thing as looking at me and saying you're fat. It's like, oh, okay. Also, is my skin white? Like, is my hair brown? Like, you don't have anything else to add to this conversation in this moment. So the word, I'm not a big fan of the word triggered, but I'm clearly triggered right now.
I love that you make that distinction though, because I feel proudly weird on the inside. But I think you're right. If you have taken back the night and reclaimed that word for yourself, then it's a-okay.
Yeah, it's again, I can't emphasize enough. It's more about the person who searches their Rolodex of words, and the only thing they can come up with to say about someone that's different than them or something new is that you're weird. Like, fuck off. Also,
fuck right off.
Yeah.
I'm not done with this kid on this bench. I love this kid sitting on the bench outside of Spencer's Gifts or whatever. And
no, I would go into Spencer's. I love Spencer's.
Spencer's was the greatest because they had the greatest blacklight posters in the world. Yes.
And it was as close to boobs as I could get.
Suze, I want to say something though about when you were asking that question of Eric, like when he knew he could engage people, and I want to flip that, because like my experience of you, Eric, for years and years and years has never been that like when you're talking with people that you have an awareness of you're engaging them. It's the opposite. Like Eric's curiosity, and like it always feels very genuine that you are interested in the person you're talking to. You want to hear their stories. You want to learn what they're saying. And I've seen that so many times, like just like your dad, you never meet a stranger, but it feels so genuinely and authentically led by curiosity in other people.
Oh,
and to me, that's different.
Like it.
That's a distinction.
But as I'm sitting here thinking about this little Eric sitting on that bench, engaging, being curious, I have this question. This is a weird, wild spark, but have you ever thought about having a talk show?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and things have kind of circled around that. Here's the problem with it. Is I would have to pretend to be interested in people that I'm not interested in.
Got it.
Like, if
so when you're not.
Yeah, if I could cultivate a conversation, because listen, when you go on those talk shows with Ellen and Letterman and all those talk shows, which I'm fortunate enough to be able to do, I get why that's a grind, because while I think of myself as an engaging person and going on with original, unique stories, not everyone's like that. So you're talking about pulling information out of said celebrity who doesn't want to be there and is only there because it's in his contract or her contract to be there to promote the movie or the TV show or whatever. And then it's literally work. I mean, if I can just brag about myself for just a second, it's why the producers of Ellen you know, like when they did a show at Universal Studios down in Florida, and we saw you that more. It's like why I jumped to the front of the list because of coming down there is because I can go on and tell a story and not make the talk show host work.
Yes.
But that's your mind for business too. Like, you know your job.
But I would way rather have a talk show with perfect strangers. That I could do.
That's interesting. That's a good spark. I think that's a good spark.
But, you know, Eric, what you just described, though, is exactly when you talk about like your mind for business, you know, you have the talent and, you know, you can do the job of being an actor, but then there's this whole other world to learn. It feels to me like you've always had those machines running at the same time, and you're aware, like, your job when you go on a show like that is to make it easy for the host.
It's so funny because when I look back at those first few years of the show, or literally the first year of the show, I ask myself all the time, like, why I thought I was qualified to go on David Letterman or Jay Leno. Like, it just all of a sudden happened, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, they're booking you for whatever night, and it's like, okay, well, I didn't go to school. I didn't go to school for this. I don't know how to go and be a talk show guest. I've watched them, but when I look at those early interviews and I look at those things, and I'm reminded of being on Letterman for the first time and what that felt like sitting backstage and all that kind of thing, it blows my mind. And it goes back to your little kid on the bench scenario, Susan, because there's this innate sort of confidence that is in me that I don't know where that came from, because, you know, improv teacher Del Close always would say, he wore a t-shirt that would say, follow the fear. And, you know, that has been in me, just God-given. I mean, just there. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not scared of things, but my willingness to just go for it has always been there.
That is a superpower.
Eric, now that I know you've spent 11, 12 or so years talking about Modern Family, I want to say one thing. The series of videos you created, all set to the You're Gonna Miss This song. Oh my God. I was thinking about, like, that was a gift for all of us, because it was all like through the last season, behind the scenes and all of that. But I got to imagine that was really a gift for you. Like, what a way to remember it all. You're going to have all of that cataloged for all time, which is incredible.
Well, it's even simpler than that. And all the crew, and listen, here's the truth of it. Everyone got annoyed with it. My castmates,
I believe it. You can see in their faces, which makes it even funnier.
My castmates, the crew, the everything. But it was at the end of the day, or at the end of the series, where I would tell each person individually what my intention of doing that was so that when you hear this song for the rest of your life, we're going to have this moment together forever. And amazing. That changed their perspective, because, you know, little Aubrey, she would be like, I hate country music. And I just fought through it and just kept playing it and kept doing it and kept singing it. And it's in our gag reel. I sung it all year long during outtakes and during things like that. And my plan was specific from the beginning, that I'm going to make this song my personal little anthem for the season, because I love the song. And then when everyone moves forward, there's no chance in hell that they're not going to have a moment when they hear that song and think of me and think of our last season of the show.
That is such a good idea.
It was so creative.
Think of how many songs we have in our mind. You know, the outfield for me. Josie's on a vacation far
fucking away. Yes. Yes.
Right? Yep. So when I hear that song, I know exactly where I am. and it
Yeah.
makes me feel good. And that's what I wanted to create.
It's just music is akin to a sense of smell, in that it's so transporting, and it's such a good trick that you played on them to be like, you sons of bitches, you are going to have wistful fondness when you hear this song. I fucking love that. That's a really good idea.
Can I tell you a quick story, Eric, of you did this for me one time? One of my favorite memories with you, this was way before Modern Family. I was visiting LA. I think I was doing like the Tonight Show or something for Blue Man. You picked me up at my hotel and we were just going to drive around. And you said, like, here's what I've been doing lately. I've just been driving around LA and I've been listening to this song. Are you ready? And I was like, yeah. And I braced myself and I fully expected some crazy song like by Rob Bass or something to come blasting out, So I was like, oh God, what's it going to be?
Pop, that pussy, y'all, pop.
That's what I thought it would be. But no, instead, it was Enya, Only Time. It was that song, like, who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time. We put that song on repeat and blasted it driving down Sunset Boulevard. I remember you pointing out the Laugh Factory and naming the comics who had performed there. We probably listened to that song like 20 times in a row, just driving.
That's vintage and classic me. My friends and anybody who's been around me for any period of time knows that when I get a song in my brain, I have to listen to it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
What do you associate with Jules is on a vacation
far away?
What do you associate that song with?
That is me in college on a Thursday or Friday night when everybody, all the partiers in my fraternity house would be going out. And I was never like a go outer type of guy. My best friend Paul, who's still my best friend Paul, he and
Hi Paul.
We would typically stay in or find something less adventurous to do. But that's just an anthem of everybody getting ready to go out and go party. Take on Manhattan, Kansas. Laura, you reminded me of a song that is I got to do this thing for Sirius, and I never really saw it, but they had me pick 10 songs that are important to me. And I kind of did it over the course of my acting career. So it was really hard to narrow them down to 10 songs. But there is a song that your listeners need to listen to, and you'll know it right when you hear it. But it's by Desiree, and it's called "You Gotta Be."
Oh yes,
yeah.
Okay,
that song is my college year. It's my final year at K-State.
Okay, so that song, when I moved to Chicago all alone, didn't know anyone there, drove my Ford Contour from Manhattan, Kansas, to Chicago with my parents.
Yes, Ford Contour. Yes.
Yeah. That song, I would just play on over and over and over again. And when you listen to the words of that song and put it into perspective of what I thought I was moving to Chicago to do.
Yes.
And just that I can listen to that song and have literal tears rolling down my face because of obviously how it all turned out, but how important that song was to me at that time.
Hi, friends. I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell.
And we're the hosts of the Sparkfile Creativity Podcast.
We are excited to report that we're accepting applications for the Sparkfile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, a guided 6-month creative adventure.
This program is like a live, interactive episode of the Sparkfile Podcast, facilitated by the two of us and, of course, the occasional inspiring expert or guest maker. We'll investigate topics that directly impact your creativity and productivity. A select group of participants will design and navigate their own creative roadmaps and support each other to get the work done. Now, you might have a specific project you want to tackle, or you might just want a healthy, productive group to engage with in a regular creative practice.
At each week's virtual meetup, through activities, accountability, and interaction with a community of peers, we'll lay the groundwork for your creativity to thrive. Show up and do the work, and in 6 months' time, your creative practice will be on point and your creative project will be well on its way.
As you know, we believe every single person is innately creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. If you want to be surrounded by a group of like-minded creatives who are invested in your success, the SparkFile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program might be just right for you.
If this creative mixtape sounds appealing to you, go to thesparkfile.com, click on coaching, and apply. But do it soon because spots are limited. I have a question for you, Eric. You are in this liminal space now. You finished this really, really significant long-form project. Professionally, at least, you're in this liminal space. And we've talked to so many makers who have experienced enormous success. And then they have this pressure considering what to do next after that success. Do you feel any of that stress? Has this pause that the pandemic has inserted into all of our lives alleviated any of that pressure? How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Yeah, that's a relevant question as well. Because, Modern Family was this, right out of the gates, big giant success. And I had a tenth, less than a tenth of the load to carry in that show, meaning it wasn't the Eric Stonestreet show. It was Modern Family, and I was one of, the cast members. And it had the pedigree of a couple great writers, and it had, network and studio support out the wazoo. So that's a huge thing to have your first big break on, and I've been an actor for 12 or 13 years before that. It's crazy to say my first big break was 12 or 13 years into my career, but that's the truth. So now that's over. And that was not only was it all of what I just said, it was also this creative utopia, meaning that we all got along. We never had drama. There was never a diva. I was probably the closest to being the diva, or whatever. Like, we all liked each other, and everyone carried the same amount of weight on the show, and it was never one of our shows. So it just was, and the writers and the writing remained fantastic. So now
that's a pretty amazing magic trick.
Yeah. Now it's over. And now you think, from a business side of things, going back to my business mind, which is, I'm going to go and work with people that I don't know, potentially get teamed up with an actor or performer that might throw a temper tantrum and not come out of their trailer on a Tuesday for some reason that isn't known to me. Like, how's that going to work? So there is this amazing amount of anxiety around what I do next. But the truth is I've, there's a saying in the business that you can't be a bigger asshole than the number one asshole on the call sheet. And on our show, Ed O'Neill was number one on the call sheet. And Ed O'Neill is an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And that sets the tone. So when that person isn't an asshole, no one else can be.
Yeah.
So now my creative desire and my business sense is to go and be that number one on a call sheet and be able to set my tone of how I want the show done, and how
and be a great leader,
and talk to people and cultivate, because on Modern Family, it was interesting how it kind of worked with the cast, because Ed has been in the business and famous and rich and blah 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 for so long. He doesn't really get down into the melee of things, like, meaning, hey, so-and-so's, being a jerk to so-and-so. Nobody goes to Ed with those problems, right? And it oddly trickled to me. Me being 5 on the call sheet is where and because of my, high sense of justice. And what did you say? That happened to so-and-so? Well, that's not right. We need to do something about that, Well, listen, that's a very dangerous place to be on a TV show when you're the person that people come to with all those issues.
Oof.
And it's fun, but you also then you can kind of become the squeaky wheel. My point of all this is that I would love to be able to set the tone of a show and just know that, from the top down, from the creators, and we had great creators on Modern Family, that's not the point, but just to be able to set that sort of in Stonestreet, I guess, that this is how this is how things are gonna run, and it's an easy place to be, and that sounds fun to me.
I can't wait to see that happen.
Well, but then it also has to be a good show. That's the other element of it. So then then the fear becomes of like, okay, well, what's gonna be? What do I want to do?
Do you have something in mind? Like what kind of thing would interest you?
Yeah, I mean, before all this happened, I mean, we're lots of discussions are happening with different people about things. That's why when you asked me what the creative risk, the entry ticket at the beginning was, I sort of hesitated because there is a business risk that is on the horizon to take, but or a show business risk to take, and just don't know when this is all going to kind of be over and we'll get back to work. And then that would have been my answer, potentially, if we were doing this a month from now or 2 months from now.
No, I think it's exciting. And also I can imagine that it does feel super risky because magic, you had, that was an extended period of magic on so many levels. And I can imagine it feeling risky, that it's sort of like, can we make something that is its own thing, but it's also like functional and special and well made and kind and professional. But that's a fun challenge. But I can also imagine it would be anxiety provoking.
Well, and here's the other thing is that it's what, like, I'm cognizant, or I think, and maybe I'm wrong to think about it, is like what do people want to see me do? Like because I don't want to be like the Lady Death Protest too much and then all of a sudden be a serial killer on some show. You know what I mean? It's like go from playing Cameron Tucker to all of a sudden playing some dark, horrible, ruthless character. Right. So I have to find the balance of what people want to see me do, what people will find interesting and believable, that also is creatively stimulating to me. I never wanted to be that comedic actor that's like, well, but what I really want to do is drama. Even though, like, that's what I had done mostly before Modern Family, was procedural drama on TV
CSI.
shows.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Eric, remember when you were on American Horror Story? That was so fucking scary. God damn it. That was so goddamn stressful. I had to watch that through a couch pillow.
Oh yeah. I love doing that. And, I had a couple opportunities to go back and do a couple episodes of that. And I wanted to. I love Ryan Murphy. I love his world and you want to talk about a spark. I mean, that guy's crazy creative. I love his brain. But in that world, and then juxtaposition all of what I've just said with finding the balance of feeling comfortable, and I don't want to say the word set because that sounds like braggy, but set in life, meaning I don't have to like go do something.
That's right.
Yep.
With feeling like not lazy, because I don't want to feel lazy and say like, well, I don't want to do anything, but there is this feeling of like, well, it's got to be good. It's got to be something. Ed, right in the beginning of Modern Family, when we first started, he goes, listen, you're going to get asked to do stuff in your off season. You're going to get asked to do movies or whatever. he's like, just take my advice. Just, if it's not better than this, don't do it. And, that stuck with me big time because, he turned out to be right. Because I've, along the way, get offered to go do a small movie in Louisiana or a small movie in this or a bigger role in this movie. And it's like, I don't want to go to Atlanta for 3 months. Like, I don't want to do that. And so you have to find this, this thing. What I was talking about. It's like, I don't want to appear lazy because my job is to be an actor and be creative and to go create a role. But if it doesn't just move me immediately, what am I going to do it for?
But the other thing is, I don't think I see all the things that you're doing in the world, entrepreneurial things, philanthropic things, and I would not call you a lazy person, even though you're not doing some movie that your heart isn't interested in. But I am curious, with those things that you are choosing to do, I know that there's a disruption because of the pandemic, but that aside, how do you decide what those things are that you are going to select to devote your time and energy to?
Okay, so this is really funny. It's so elementary, rudimentary, whatever it is, but it's 1,000% true, and it's my technique. It's so dumb.
It's a patented Stonestreet technique.
No, it's so dumb, and my manager over the years has gotten to know that it's the way it goes. We go back to what I said earlier, which is my lack of desire to be in education in any way. Well, one of the aspects of going to school is reading, right? And you always hear these stories of if I could just get the actor to read the material, if we could just get him to read the material. That is 1,000% true. That's 100% true. That is a huge hurdle for any creative person to get someone to read the material.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. My manager knows when they send a script over that if I get to page 6, I'm interested. And my email is response is your indicator. For me, if I respond quickly, then I'm interested.
Yeah.
And I just have to trust that. I have to know that something threw me off and I didn't respond, or I didn't get to it. Sometimes I'll skip to the end and read the end and see something. I read something and I visually imagine me doing it. And if I can't see myself doing it, there was this project a couple years ago that somebody really wanted me to do, and I was interested in the material. I liked the material, but when I would lay in bed at night, which is where I do most of my thinking, and I would mentally imagine myself in that part, I never could get around me saying the words of that character. I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. So that's one way. And then, my dad always taught me, and this is, again, it's going to sound so backwards, but it's so true. When you don't have to think about it anymore is when you know you've made your decision. And the best example I can give you is so dumb, but it's just my life. I always thought I wanted, at my old house that Laura had been to, that I lived in Valley Village there. I always thought I wanted a hot tub. I always thought I'm going to get a hot tub. And I'd go to Costco and I'd look at hot tubs. I had the electrician come over and tell me what I needed to do to get the right power over there. And I'd look online, I'd go to the hot tub store and I'd sit in a hot tub and I'd think about it.
Yeah.
And I never got a hot tub. And that is the classic example of my dad's advice, is when you wake up and you're not thinking about it anymore, you know you've made your decision.
Yeah.
Mhm. You're done.
Or if
And-
you've pulled the trigger, like if you would have,
Yeah.
if you really, really, really wanted the hot tub, you would have had the hot tub installed.
Exactly. It would
Yep.
have happened, but I was still hemming and hawing and hedging and
Yeah.
thinking and this.
Yep.
And that's how it is with when I find myself reading something or I've read something and I'm still thinking about it. And that really goes to your gut.
Yeah.
It goes to trusting
Yeah.
your gut. You
It
know
is
when
intuition.
you know.
It's when it clicks into place and when it's sort of just like that puzzle piece just goes click. And there's an ease about it where it just sort of all makes sense and comes together.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's also not like overthinking it. It's literally like letting your thoughts naturally come and go. And if it's a part of them, that tells you something, as opposed to like, I need to sit down and I need to think about this.
I like the idea of the hot tub metric. I think that's useful takeaway from this.
I think if
Yeah,
we've learned
well,
If we've
anything
learned
today,
nothing else.
you just know. I mean, I've always found, and Marshall Bell, a great mentor to me. He's a character actor that I've met on a campaign of commercials I did years ago, and we've just stayed friends. And he's a great guy, great character actor. And right before I got Modern Family, I was sort of in one of my sort of valleys that actors get into where it's like, what is this all for? Am I ever going to find the success that I think I'm capable of or whatever it is? He kind of talked me out of it. And he's like, well, can you type? He's got this real thick Oklahoma accent. And he goes, can you type? And I said, well, not really. He goes, well, what in the hell else are you going to do then?
That's it. It's this or typing.
And I said, well, yeah. He goes, you're on the carousel, man. You're on the carousel. Your turn's going to come, man. You're in too deep.
Oh,
God.
And, he kind of talked me through that. And
you're in too deep.
You're in too deep. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
And he always would tell me, and I don't think he invented it, but I love it. And everybody I always tell, it seems like it's the first time they've heard it, but Hollywood in our business is the slowest no and the fastest yes.
Mm.
And
could you say what that means?
well, it means, and it took me forever to figure out what the slowest no and the fastest yes meant. But I found that I was, sort of playing in that pool for years and years and years. So it's on a Monday, you go in and you audition for CSI. And on Thursday, you're wondering if you got the part. And on Friday, you're thinking, well, maybe I'll hear today. And then over the weekend, you're like, well, I never heard anything. I wonder if I got it or not. And it's like, well, that's the slow no. And it takes you getting the fast yes to understand what the slow no and the fast yes
got
is.
It. Got it.
It's a yes. Boom.
When it's a yes, it's a yes, typically.
When it's a yes, they call you when you're on the sidewalk outside of the audition.
100%. And that's not always the case.
But a lot of times.
It's a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it took me thinking of all the slow no's I put myself through, my family through, and thinking of like, well, have you heard anything? No, not yet. No, not yet. Meanwhile, they've probably shot the job. And, it was a joke that I would have with my friend Paul, my best friend Paul, who's still my best friend Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
I love
that.
Paul.
I would always do when we'd go to a movie in a part that I had auditioned for in a movie, and I would lean over to him and say, well, I guess I didn't get this part.
Fucking A.
I guess this is how I'm going to find out.
Yeah,
Didn't get it.
This is how I find out I didn't
I've
get
stopped saying to my husband now, I've stopped saying, I auditioned for that. I auditioned for that. I'm like, why even take the breath to expel the words? I auditioned for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But the flip side of that is what I was saying about how you asked me earlier, just a second ago, of like how I say yes to things. So I use the fastest no, or the slowest no and the fastest yes as my technique. I know when I know. Like I apply that principle to when I'm reading a script and am actively motivated. And that just happened. It happened a couple weeks ago when I got a script sent to me. And I read the premise, I read the first lines, and I called my manager immediately. I said, yes, I want to move forward. I want to move forward with this. This is exciting.
Yes.
Shit. You know what I'm trying to get better at, Eric, actually, is the yes to the fast yes and yes to the fast no. I'm trying to get better at being like, when something comes through, some ask, some offer, just I know in my body, like what you're talking about, I know in my body when I'm like, no,
Nope.
hard pass. And I'm trying to get better at just taking the breath and sending the email or making the phone call that's just like, thank you so much, but so no thank you, more
Yeah.
quickly. I think I need to get better at that. The fast yes and the fast no.
Well, there's a lot of surrender, a lot of power in that fast no.
Mm-hmm.
And once you can type out the word pass or no thank you,
Yeah.
and you get used to doing it quickly, there really becomes a lot of great comfort in that. So practice it, and then you won't have any problem with it.
Gentle pass. Thank you.
It doesn't even have to be gentle. Because here's the other thing that I learned really early on is your career is defined by what you say no to, not by what you say yes to. So a lot of times people, when you say no, they're just like profoundly intoxicated by that. Like, I'm sorry, what? No? Well, hold on. What if we paid you more? It's still a no. Well, but wait a minute. Well, what if this is like, no, it's still a no. Like there's power in no, and there's
Yes.
respect in no.
Yeah.
And that's what
For
Ed was
sure.
telling me. Ed was teaching me that very early on.
Yeah.
He's like, say no more than you say yes, because that is what your career and what your life is defined by, what you say no to.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Well, and here's you just got me going now, because now you just made me think of something that's a full moment. Before I ever knew I wanted to be, was going to audition for the circus in high school. My high school counselor, Al Ogden, who passed away last year, he was this great guy. He was just always just so much sage wisdom, and really a big reason why I moved to Chicago, because he was the dean of students at Oak Park River Forest High School in Oak Park, Illinois. And he took me up there when I was in high school on a tour, and I just fell in love with the city of Chicago. But anyway, he told me, he said, Eric, always remember in life that they'll ask the ringmaster in a circus to scoop up the elephant poop. Now, this was before I ever auditioned for Ringling Brothers. And I was like, what do you mean, Mr. Ogden? He goes, they'll ask the ringmaster to scoop up the elephant poop, but it's up to the ringmaster to say, no, I'm the ringmaster. I don't scoop up the elephant poop. And what the lesson there is, people will always ask you things. They'll always, and I applied that right in my career when I moved to LA, because you can be a Juilliard trained, top-notch actor and have the best resume, the best whatever you can, and they'll still ask you to do one line on Dharma and Greg. Because why wouldn't they want the best actor to do that one line?
Of course.
In Dharma and Greg. So that's where you start to learn. You have to start defining who you are to people. And that's why I would tell people, you can't do background work. You can't do these one-line parts forever. You can't do co-stars. You have to keep moving yourself up the chain, because of course they're going to keep asking you to do these one-off parts, because you're so talented and you're so good that they want to knock that one line out of the park just as much as they want to do anything else. So you have to start saying no. And it was when I was in LA, I remembered, it's like, this is what Mr. Ogden was talking about. Of course.
I want to ask you, is there something creative you need to do before you're done?
I think I have a pretty strong desire to, because again, my acting training is what it is and limited. So my goals always were to, create characters or create moments, whatever they were, that one line on that one show, or 3 lines on what other show, is to have people say, "Oh, that guy was good," or "That was funny," or whatever. That was my goal. So I would say that I probably have a desire to, if someone's listening that thinks I was successful with the character of Cameron on Modern Family, I would probably say I have the desire in my brain and in my heart to make them feel something completely opposite of Cameron and feel as successful at doing that. And that goes to, because I say I don't want to be that comedic actor that's like, oh, no, but now I want to do drama. But I played a character for 11 years that's not my personality. Like,
That's right.
It's there's aspects of my personality that are there clearly, or I wouldn't have been good at it, I guess. But I haven't had the ability to make an audience aware of a character that's closer to my real personality. And I think that would be surprising.
I think that would be, I mean, I know I have a really good sense of what you're capable of, and I'm sure it's even beyond what I know at this point, but I look forward to that. I think people will be blown away by the scope of work that you're able to do.
You're very nice to say that.
Can't wait to see what that is.
I know.
It's exciting.
I have a friend that always would say, before I was ever on the show, that she would always say, like, somebody's going to pay you $1 million to let the rage that just sits right under the thin skin of your personality out. So when somebody gives you the opportunity to let that loose,
you better go for it.
I always thought, like, well, that's how I would ever make it, is like,
that's how you get your Oscar, baby.
Yeah.
Eric, you've done so much. I feel like in so many different areas with your work on Modern Family, all the work that preceded that, the Royals, the philanthropy. What's it all for?
Well, you mean the philanthropy portion of what's it all for?
Just
or
all the hard work that you do, all of the hard work that you do. Is there a sense of unifying purpose behind it?
Well, I say this every year when I come home to Kansas City to do the Big Slick, and I just saw somebody say it way better than I'm able to say it, and I meant to write it down, but because I'm a horrible student.
But here we are.
Doing good things for the community is the most gratifying, selfish feeling thing you can do. It feels like I'm the one that is on the receiving end of that, because it makes me feel so good, and it doesn't necessarily feel right. And that's why, my message to kids that send me direct messages on Instagram, and I've been trying to send replies to people as much as I can, when they're feeling despair or lonely or whatever, it's like, the best thing you can do is go do something for someone else. It will fill you up with so much joy to go out and just do one tiny little act for someone. So, I guess I'm trying to fill something up inside me, just like everyone else is. You go buy a big TV and you hope that that's going to make you feel great, or you go, eat a cake or whatever it is that people do to try to find that good feeling they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I'm on the same quest, and I try to funnel and channel it through doing good stuff for people in organized ways, meaning with the Big Slick here in Kansas City and Children's Mercy Hospital, but also through my private and secretive, I don't want to say secretive, but sort of non-publicized ways of helping people and doing things for them.
Yep.
It makes me feel good. And then, It's as simple as that. It makes me feel good, and it also helps other people. So that's the answer there.
That's
But
a great one.
why goes back to my parents and my dad specifically. I watched him do nice, good things for people my whole life, and would see it all the time. So the other answer there is to try to live up to the example I watched my dad set. For me, is the reason that I like doing good things. One of the coolest things I ever saw, tell you this, I don't think I've ever told this story before. One of the coolest things I ever saw my dad do for someone was he knew a friend of his was having a hard time. I get emotional thinking about this. He installed garage doors was his job, and he had I don't know, a rough time, didn't have business or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than my dad saying, hey, here's X amount of dollars for your business, he had him come out and install 2 new garage doors in my dad's barn. And he said, okay, I'll be back. I'll go write you a check. And comes back up with the check already, filled out, and hands it to him. And I watched it happen. The guy looks at it and he goes, well, the garage doors, this is not how much these garage doors cost. This is way too much, Vince. And he said, well, but that's what I want to pay for the garage doors.
Oh,
and I just thought that was so cool. That was just like such a cool move, because it was just like, it was respectful.
Yeah.
It was helpful. It wasn't like charity. It was like, no, don't you, like, this is what I'm valuing your work as.
That's right.
You worked here today. This is what I'm going to pay you. And I've never forgotten that.
Before I have to pull out the Kleenex, Eric, can you tell us what or who is sparking you these days? Any interesting, books or quotes or songs, or, what song do you have on repeat these days?
Oh my gosh. Oh, let me look. I just was playing this song on the way home. It's by this guy, and it's, also I'm very much into music environmentally where I'm at, like, meaning the backdrop of where I'm at is important to me. So it's this guy that I just was listening to named Larry Fleet, and the song is called Workin' Hard. And I've just been listening to that over and over and over again.
That's going to be the song that helps you remember this time. Yeah. When you hear that song, you're going to be like, yeah, Larry Fleet. Yeah. We do not have the rights to use this music, Larry Fleet.
I know his manager, but I know his manager, so you're good.
Eric, thank you so much. You're just such a joy, and it's such a pleasure, and I'm so happy to catch up with you in these strange times in this strange way.
We're so happy to have this time with you. Especially, it feels so much more poignant because the times are so weird. But thank you for making time for this.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and congratulations on your podcast and what you guys are doing. It's exciting. It's good that you took the proverbial bull by the horns and created your own thing, and it's successful.
Only way to do it.
Yeah,
only way to do it, Eric. I guess that's it. We hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to us. If there is a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, we hope you'll email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people you love. And if you didn't like it, I don't know, Eric, what do you say to your critics?
Can you just like fuck off, I guess.
Yes. Classic that never goes out of style. Yes.
Well, it's, it's so easy to be a critic.
Oh, yeah. Too easy.
And everyone has a platform.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
But they've got to fuck straight off.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame. You gotta take it and make it. Bye.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell.
And we're the hosts of the Sparkfile Creativity Podcast.
We are excited to report that we're accepting applications for the Sparkfile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program, a guided 6-month creative adventure.
This program is like a live, interactive episode of the Sparkfile Podcast, facilitated by the two of us and, of course, the occasional inspiring expert or guest maker. We'll investigate topics that directly impact your creativity and productivity. A select group of participants will design and navigate their own creative roadmaps and support each other to get the work done. Now, you might have a specific project you want to tackle, or you might just want a healthy, productive group to engage with in a regular creative practice.
At each week's virtual meetup, through activities, accountability, and interaction with a community of peers, we'll lay the groundwork for your creativity to thrive. Show up and do the work, and in 6 months' time, your creative practice will be on point and your creative project will be well on its way.
As you know, we believe every single person is innately creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone. If you want to be surrounded by a group of like-minded creatives who are invested in your success, the Sparkfile Select Group Creativity Coaching Program might be just right for you.
If this creative mixtape sounds appealing to you, go to thesparkfile.com, click on coaching, and apply. But do it soon because spots are limited. Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Sparkfile here to let you know that the doors are open for the Sparkfile Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk, go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.